By now, you've probably heard of what's going on with NAR and the fact that they just got into a huge lawsuit that's going to take quite a bit of time for them to get out of and is affecting the industry. So, how does that affect you as the consumer, as the seller, as the buyer, as the investor? How does it affect agents and how they get paid? And ultimately, is it going to save you money in the long run? Stay tuned. We're going to go over that, all of that stuff in detail. But before we get into all of that, let me tell you, I am Brian Steinmetz. I'm the principal broker of my own firm here in the Burlington, Vermont area. I work with my wife, Ruth, who is a wonderful interior designer and home stager. We work together as a team, although we have individual departments, and we love working together. So, NAR just got this big settlement lawsuit thing for $418 million that they have to pay out for over the next 4 years, so like $100 million a year. But who is NAR? Why are they important? What kind of organization are they? So, it's the National Association of Realtors. And there is a difference between a realtor and a real estate agent. It is the largest trade organization in the country. It is one of the most powerful lobbying forces in Washington. And it is one of the oldest trade organizations in the country, founded in 1908. Most agents, once they get their license, become realtors, which means they join the National Association of Realtors, the benefits of which are you get some discounts on some cool stuff, and they control all of the multiple listing services throughout the country. Not necessarily control, but certainly influence them. And in order to join your local board of realtors, you first have to join NAR, and then your state board or regional board, and then your local board. So for example, I operate in Burlington, Vermont. I am a member of the National Association of Realtors. I'm a member of the Vermont Association of Realtors, and I'm a member of the Northwestern Vermont Realtors Association. So all of those have benefits, mostly networking opportunities, and of course, access to the MLS. What's the MLS? It is the multiple listing service. Remember what the multiple listing service is, because we're going to talk about that in more detail later on. One of the key things it does is protects consumers. How does it protect consumers? There's a code of ethics. If you violate as an agent, or if you're unscrupulous, and you violate the code of ethics, there is crime and punishment involved with that. So what happened in the Spitzer-Burnett case is some sellers were misinformed by either unscrupulous or ignorant agents. No offense to those agents out there or anything, but this is just my perspective from my position here in Vermont. It seems to me as though a potential client or active client was not properly informed or educated on the way things work. So at some point, somebody didn't do their job and educate their clients to the fact that commissions have always been negotiable. The Spitzer-Burnett case exists because the sellers of those properties assumed or were misinformed that they have to pay the buyer agency commission. And that has never been true. Granted, up until recently, if you put a big fat zero on the MLS saying, no, I'm not going to compensate buyers, then a lot of agents would steer away from that. These changes go into effect nationwide August 17th, 2024. Here in Vermont, they've already been in effect. So this is practice now for us here in this state and a few other markets around the country. But we are experienced now in this area. Let's talk about how things have worked in the past so that we can then talk about the future.
So how it used to work, and how I think it's going to continue to work for a while, is the listing agent is going to negotiate both sides when he takes the listing. There I am. I'm your listing agent. And I'm going to negotiate 3% as represented by these $3 bills for the list side. And then I'm going to offer out another 3% to whoever the buyer's agent is. And that's a 50-50 split. And that's going to be paid for by the seller out of their proceeds. And I'm going to post that 3% offering on the multiple listing service for all the other agents to see. That's how it used to work. And it was not always a 50-50 split, but generally speaking, it was 50-50. Now, as of August 17th, I've got that 3% that I still negotiated for the list side. So I'm going to negotiate my side only, and then I'm going to wait to see what the buyers bring in. They can write an offer with their agent that would include the agent's fee, and that's negotiable. And the seller actually pays the buyer directly, who then pays their agent. And it's not going to be posted on the multiple listing service any further. And then we're going to talk about this right here. Since the seller pays the buyer directly, who then turns around and pays their agent, there's an important thing to note, and that is when you're negotiating your buyer's agent contract, they're only owed what you agree to. So if you agree to 2.5% and the seller happens to be offering 3%, you get to keep that extra 0.5%. Similarly, why I think more sellers are going to stop offering buyer compensation is they're not going to want to overpay, because they're going to want to keep their money too. So I think that's what's going to happen moving forward.
And speaking of buyer contracts, another major change is you can no longer casually look at homes unless they're open houses hosted by the listing agent or the listing agency. You have to, as a buyer, now have something in writing that says, this person represents me, this licensed realtor has a fiduciary and confidentiality obligation towards me. Now, this means that it's going to impact the industry in another way. There's going to be more buyer consultations. The way a lot of people have done business in the past is they get a Zillow lead, say, or an internet lead. It's like, hey, I'd like to look at this house. Someone's casually looking at it. Great, I'll meet you at the property at 2 o'clock. Then they go, and then they discuss things, and it ends up being kind of a longer showing because they have a lot of things to talk about. They do the consultation at the property without having any papers signed. No longer going to be the case. You have to have something signed before you can go to the property. So what I have been doing for years, and what I think a lot of other agents are going to start to do, is to have a conversation with the buyer, as like a consultation with the buyer, where they go over everything, get the paper signed, so that they can then represent the buyer, and then they can go out and do some showings. To me, it always made sense to do it that way. I don't know why so many agents did it the other way. That's fine. It's neither here nor there. But it's the law now to get that paperwork signed before you can open the doors. So what I think is going to happen is, right now there are a lot of grandfathered in listings that already have some kind of form of compensation. And a lot of local brokerages, I'm noticing, are putting on their own personal website, not the MLS, but their branded website. This is what we're offering for this house. This is what we're offering for this house. This is what we're offering for this house. I do not think that that is going to continue. What I think is going to happen is everything's going to be TBD. Agents are going to write offers on behalf of their clients that are going to include, oh, by the way, I need you to pay me too. And then you can negotiate that from there. So there's going to be just a lot more negotiating. And it's going to be harder on the agents, but it's important to remember that if an agent can't negotiate for themselves, they can't negotiate for you either. They're going to negotiate harder for their own money than they are for you. And if they just roll over and die right away and just be like, yeah, fine, whatever, I don't need money, I like working for free, then A, they're not going to be in this business very long. As a matter of fact, the National Association of Realtors statistically says that within 5 years, 87% of licensees fail. So I said all that to say this. Yes, there are changes coming, but is it going to change everything drastically overnight? I don't think so. I think it's just going to be another roundabout way of getting back to the seller is going to end up paying 5 to 6%. Maybe less, maybe more, but around there. I'm Brian Steinmetz. I've been in this industry since 2015. I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of Vermont. I'm in business with my lovely wife. We co-own Steinmetz together, and we like to help you find your dwellings. So if you would join us, subscribing, liking this video, give me a comment if you're confused about anything. Of course, I'd be happy to help you understand this better. Thank you so much for watching. God bless.